Hello everyone and welcome to KDH art class. Alright, we are looking here at 3 clay techniques. Basically, it is impossible to do a clay piece unless you use at least one of these techniques. Most of the time you're going to use a combination of 2 or all 3 of them. When you are starting clay, I highly recommend you practice with some modeling clay. Modeling clay is oil based. It is not water based like most of the other air dry clays, Play-Doh, even the earthenware and ceramic clays out there. They are water based. That means they evaporate, they dry, they try and turn back into the dust and the rocks that they were created from. Modeling clay is oil based. The oil does not dry out. Now, I say that, but obviously if you're working on a very dirty surface, yes, it can eventually dry out, but for the most part, if you keep it in a Ziploc bag. I have clay in my art room that is, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, and it's still usable. Okay, so 3 clay techniques. Oh, by the way, if you do not have clay, you can make some stuff at home. I found this to be the easiest recipe. Cloud dough, sometimes kids call it cloud slime, so it kind of works multifunctional, but it is 1 cup, or it's equal parts, okay? So 1 cup of very cheap hair conditioner, not the shampoo but the conditioner, and 1 cup of cornstarch. Now I have not made this, but I did get this from Pinterest, and Pinterest, you know, they have not steered me wrong, so hopefully it works out really good. It might be a little too soft, but again, I went ahead and purchased some modeling clay. It was on sale. I got it for less than $3, and I have, what do I have, about 8 or so colors here, and I can make all kinds of things with it. And since it doesn't dry out, I throw it in a Ziploc bag. I'm good to go. Alright, so modeling clay, 3 techniques: slab, coil, pinch. Okay. The main one we're going to talk about is coil. Okay. Coil, it's long, it's skinny, and it's what I use for details. Okay. Pinch is just that. You're simply pinching. You pinch it into whichever shape that you want it to be. You can make pinch pots. Pinch pots are very important. That will be some videos that I show. Even with the modeling clay, you can create some nice little sculptures when you use that pinch pot technique. Pinch pot is necessary to know when you are working with the earthenware clay that you intend to put into a kiln and fire it and basically turn this soil, this dirt, back into a rock type material. Alright, we'll talk about how it shrinks and air expands and things go kablooey, and if there's moisture in there, water vibrates, tries to get bigger, all kinds of stuff. Pinch pot is a very vital tool to know, or technique to know, when you're dealing with clay. Coil, this is mostly your detail work, or at least it is for me. Some people use it as the actual structure. Okay. And slab is where you can kind of treat it like a piece of paper in a way. You cut out shapes, you can draw on it, you know, making boxes, or taking the slab and draping it over something. So if I take the slab and I put it over something and I drape it, it will then make that shape, that slump. These are all different techniques that you need to know whether you use them or not, so that you can get some of the best clay sculptures that you are trying to create. So we're focusing on coil, so let's get started. I do clay with all grade levels, kindergarten on up. I do not have pre-K, but even if I had pre-K, I would make them do this. Okay. Modeling clay. When you pull it out of your Ziploc, it's going to feel cold. Right? That means it's going to be kind of hard to work with, especially the darker the color. The darker the color, the harder it is to warm it up and get it going. Once it gets going, it's great. Right? I don't know why that is, but I have noticed that, well, basically because my 8-9-year-old clay, I give them the yellow, the red is a little bit harder, or I could be getting that mixed up. But the colors actually affect how fast they warm up and how soft they become. Alright, which is what we want. So, kids, go ahead and put your clay in your hands and cover it up, and let's let our hands start to warm it up before we do anything. So you're going to sit here, and clay, like I said, is a type of soil. Okay? Modeling clay, that's different. That's a man-made thing. But the clay they use to make the original ceramic and pottery pieces, sculptures out there, okay, that is found in the ground. If you're in the Texas area, especially in the Houston area, we have it. I tell my kids that when your parents are digging, and go ahead and move it around, warm it up some more. Okay. When your parents are digging in the dirt, they dig for about a foot and a half. Things are wonderful, and then all of a sudden, they put their shovels down in there, and something happens. It either hits something that sounds like a rock, or there's this squishy sound and the shovel gets like stuck in there. Right? That is the clay. Depending on where you are, it could be the black clay, it could be that orangey clay, it could be a reddish clay, it could be a yellowish clay. But that is the clay. Alright, now we add things to it to make it, I squish it a little bit at this point. We add things to that dirt, that soil, to make it much easier to use and a better quality piece. But I've had students bring me clay sculptures from the clay they found in their yard. Because it's not fired, it does fall apart over time, but I love it. They're working on it, they're trying. So that's the clay. When you add water, it will change it into that muddy, super sticky material. If you add too much, it sticks to your hands and it doesn't keep its form. If you don't have enough, when you're trying to move it around, it cracks and falls apart. And when you leave it out, it dries up and tries to turn back into that dirt that you originally found it as. Alright, so right now you've probably already noticed, it's easier to squish around the clay. Our hands have warmed up the oil inside the clay, and when it's warmer, it's more kind of liquid in a way, so it's easier to move around. Perfect. I'm going to be using different colors, so I'm going to go ahead and warm this one up for a second. I like showing different colors so it's easier for you to see the different steps. Okay, we talked about coil. What is coil? How do you make it? I tell my students, first thing, just kind of squish it into a, I don't know, ovally, hot doggy looking blob. Put it between your hands, and you're going to do your hands back and forth like this. Okay. Don't push too hard, but at the same time, it depends on the age. Kindergarten, you're going to have to push pretty hard. Kinder and first. When you start getting to third, fourth, and fifth, they don't have to press as hard. Alright, it's starting to get to be as big as our hand. If I go further, it's going to flop out here and mess up. So I don't want that. I'm going to stop and put it onto the surface. This modeling clay, not that big of an issue, but keep in mind, a shiny surface, the clay likes to stick to it when you push on it. Okay, so quartz countertops, marble, those stone countertops at your mom's house, not a good idea to work on that. Find yourself a tablecloth. I'm actually working on poster board. It's going to be just fine. When you're working with ceramic clay, or the earthenware type clay, you are going to probably want to work on a fabric. Find a fabric. I had some denim fabric that I cut into these surface areas, and that's what they work on. Working out on the sidewalk worked great this last year. We went outside to do our clay projects. Wonderful. Alright, coil. You're going to need to now roll with a flat hand. Don't let any of your fingers stick out more than the others, and don't stay in one spot. Flat hand, back and forth. And look, I'm moving my hand across to the other side. And now, without stopping, I'm going back to the first side. And bring it on back to this side. And back to this side. And you're going to notice it's getting longer and longer. Do not stay on one spot. You will get this funny looking skinny spot. Okay. A lot of kids think if they put both hands and they go back and forth. No. You don't ever want to do two hands, because it's near impossible, especially in the beginning, to keep your hands perfectly together. One's going to move more than the other, and you're going to get stuff like this. Okay, so one hand, back and forth. If you get a little spot like that, kind of push it back together, and continue to roll. Clay is wonderful. It is not something to get upset about, because ball it up and start all over. It's easy. It's easy. Alright. Heads up, you're going to have kids that are better at three-dimensional things than they are at two-dimensional drawing type stuff or painting things. And then you're going to have kids that are better at drawing and painting than they are at the clay piece. So I try and introduce a bunch of different mediums out there so that kids discover, hey, I may not be the best drawer in the class, but I'm good at clay. Or I may not be good at clay, I may not be good at drawing, but I can paint. You know, each child is going to have their little specialty. Alright, so it's almost the same thickness as my pencil. Actually did pretty good there. Just a little bit bigger. Alright, this is what I want you to do. I want you to tear off a little piece, tell the kid's about the size of your finger. Set it to the side. Alright, with this left over, let's keep rolling. I'm starting to get bigger, so let me get some of this stuff out of the way. There we go. And look, it's getting skinnier. So I'm going to break off that piece. I now have two different size coils. And I'm going to keep rolling. Back and forth and back and forth. As it gets skinnier, I'm going to push and let it roll on its own. Pull and let it roll on its own. Push and let it roll a little bit, because that amazingly enough, helps with these longer pieces. If I just stay here, again, you saw it get a little bit skinnier. This allows the whole thing to roll, and it keeps it more and more the same. Alright, so it's a little bit skinnier. Alright, and back here, back and forth. Now what I have my students doing at this point, and what I want you to be doing, is seeing how many different thicknesses you can make of your clay. You have less and less mass to work with, so as you roll it out, it gets skinnier and skinnier. Now my students are usually able to go skinnier than I because they have those little bitty fingers and those little bitty hands. And I'm proud of that. As you can see, they're kind of push them together and get smaller and smaller and smaller. So I have 5 different types here. And they just love doing this. You know, it's something rather peaceful and soothing about it, as well as developing their skills. It's actually going to kind of get down to a part where you can only use a couple fingers instead of your whole hand. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to kind of get used to how small you can make it. Because this is now close to, well, it looks like a toothpick, the tip of my colored pencil. And this are almost the same size. I think this might actually be a little bit smaller than my blue tip. Perfect. Alright. So I hope you've had a chance to make a few of them. And keep in mind, this is, you know, a way of creating details. And it's called coil. So I can do different things with my coils. I can roll them around, I can do little circles, I can bend them. You can do all kinds of things with coil. Let's zoom in and practice a few. The favorite one is, of course, you kind of bend it on one tip till it touches, and you roll it around. And this is the famous snail that every student in kindergarten has to show me they make. I don't know why, but as soon as one sits there and goes, "Miss Howard, I made a snail," then I must acknowledge the other 30 children and their snails, because everybody loves making the snails. And then they get creative and they call them lollipops, or, you know, sometimes I challenge them to spell out their name. Again, this is your details. Alright. You can make little circles with it, coils with it, outline stuff with it like you're drawing, eyelashes. This is your coil. Coil is a wonderful detail tool, and it's not just details. You could actually make things, coil pots and artworks. build it up. Ta-da. Make a little eye with eyelashes. I'm always outlining my eyes and doing my eyelashes. Add your little eyebrow. Alright, so all kinds of things you can do with coil. So let's make a project. Okay. First thing is we're going to need to ball it up. And that's what's wonderful about this modeling clay. We can start all over. It has not dried out. It's not going to dry out anytime soon. Alright, let's do that cha-cha-cha back and forth with our hands. And create our coil. Alright, that's a good start. It's a little bit thicker than my pencil. Another one is if they come out of the package, they're about that same size. Okay. Alright. Let's make a ball. Alright. So squish it up as much as you can. Put it in between, and you're going to make circles with your hand. And you can actually do 2 circles. So around and around. My hands are really deep on the inside, so it always turns out to look like an egg. So I'm going to smooth out some of that, and sometimes you can do it right there on the surface. Alright, now that you have kind of the ball, put it down. Take 2 fingers, and you're going to not flat but add a diagonal with the 2 fingers. Add a diagonal. You're going to push down on one side. Sorry, my fingers are so big they're in the way. There, it's starting to go. So it's going to look kind of like an ice cream cone, just not as pointy on the one side. Okay, we're not going to a perfect point to it. You still want it to be kind of flat on the one side. Give it a little tap. Again, we're learning. The other side, I want it to be kind of rounded. Alright. Ta-da! Believe it or not, that is your body. Right. This is the bottom, and this is the neck. And it's going to be sitting. So I'm going to give it a little tap, 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 so that it sits nicely. Alright, you can continue with the same color. I'm going to change colors so you can kind of see what's going on. I'm going to get a piece, give it a little squish, and roll it around. Make that little ball shape. Take my finger, do basically the same thing on one side. I'm going to create a narrow ice cream cone kind of shape. Tap that a little bit. I just like starting with a little smooth surface, so. And kind of smooth out the back side. And it's just a smaller version of that one. The difference is this is going to be the head. And you can kind of pinch it down or roll it out thinner. Now, you can use a popsicle stick. You can use a toothpick. I cannot find my toothpicks, but I happen to have something that looks kind of like it. You could use a tapestry needle if you have a tapestry needle. Tapestry needle is just kind of like a sewing needle, but as big as a toothpick. I actually like to give my kids tapestry needles instead of toothpicks, because a lot of times they'll break the toothpicks off accidentally and leave them in their clay, and that's never good when I'm the one that's coming behind getting hurt by them. So needless to say, something like that. And I'm just going to take my little popsicle stick, and right there in the tip of the head I'm going to make an opening, and just by pushing in. The toothpick will actually be a little bit skinnier. And I've now created a mouth. Now, animals, yes, this is going to be an animal, their mouth is under their nose. No smiley faces. Alright, so we created the mouth. Now we're going to take a pencil or your toothpick and create two little circles for their nostrils. That's where the air goes in their nose so that they can breathe. And depending on your animal will depend on how big or small your little nostrils are. Alright. See if I can get this thing to focus any better. It's so hard to find a camera that's going to focus while I'm moving around a lot that I can afford. Okay, so the eyes. Can come in on the sides. Now I tell my kids I don't want your animal to look straight normal. I like it to have a little bit of a tilt or a curve that gives it personality. And when your artwork has the personality, it has developed its own story in a sense, it does much better in art contests. No one wants to look at an animal that's just like, huh? They want the one with the tilted head going, whoo, what's going on? Or what just happened? Who are you? Is that a treat for me? So, alright, so it's okay. My head is tilted a little bit. And now I need some feet and legs. So let me change colors. I don't like how you can't really see that red very well. Oh no! Stay put. In fact, that's how thick I want it. Let me get a bigger piece. I'm going to get a bigger piece, and I'm going to coil it out. And these are going to be my front legs, so that gives you an idea. Alright, now my front legs, it's one coil. I'm going to bend it in half And I can take, again, my popsicle stick. I'm trying to find things that you might have around your house, or that toothpick, and chop. I've now created 2 legs. On the bottom, I'm going to make it like an L for the foot. On both of them. An L or a J, depending on which way. There's your J. There's your L. Okay. And let me come on over. My legs are too long. And since I want both legs to be the same size, I'm going to line them up. And I'm going to cut them both at the same time. Chop. Ugh. Looks like I'm going to need a new poster board. Okay. Alright, so I'm doing these in different colors. So that you can see the different parts and how they go. Alright, so I added my little legs. I have my head. He's missing the ears and all that kind of stuff, but we'll get there. He's got his little feet. With my toothpick, I can add like the little toes. And give it a little more detail, personality. Alright, so now I need 2 pieces that are about the same size. It's much easier to cut like this. And I'm going to squish them kind of like the shape of a coin, but not as skinny as a coin. Dime in my case. Not sure how much clay you used, but mine are about the size of a dime. There we go. And oh, there we go. I can make another coil. See the coil? I'm using the coil a lot. Fold it in half. That end's a little skinny. Cut them in half, so I have 2. I don't know if you've ever seen an animal when it's sitting. It has what looks almost like a little circle, and it has its foot sticking out. So we are actually making the back feet. And the toes. And voila. First you're going to want that on the table so that you can make sure your leg is touching the ground. Same with the other side. I have my circle. And I add the bottom. My little toe detail. And it's going to go on the other side. It's a Ta-da! Alright, so we have our legs, our head, and our body all attached. And now the details are up to you. You could give it nice big floppy ears if it's a puppy dog, which mine is kind of already turning into a little puppy dog. Now keep in mind, you're going to want them to be about the same size. And don't forget to give it a little personality. Maybe curled up more. On one side than the other. And the face just doesn't have enough details, so I'm actually going to do a tiny little piece, a little bit of coil, cut it in half, swish it around in my fingers. I'm just going to make a little ball. Uh-oh. So that I can add the eye, or roll it out. These eyebrows are so important. A little long. Tear off some of it. See, my students, they do so much better. They've got those tiny little fingers. Yeah. I actually made them look a little rough. Let's curl it up a little bit more. There we go. Like that. Put the little eye in there. Don't forget the other side and the tail. Speaking of doggies, I see my doggies walking around. They're letting me know it's almost dinner time. I'm just proud they're not barking at me right now. It's always getting the second one to look like the first one. That's so hard to do. And once again, I'll tell you the same thing I tell my students: practice. Practice and persevere. I tell them, you show that clay who's boss. You let them know. Alright, and all I really need is a tail. And my puppy dog is done. I'm going to have my coil, squish it down all the way to a point this time. Alright, and then I can curl it as much as you want your puppy dog's tail to curl. And attach. And you have created your first little clay animal. Mine is really fun with the bright colors. I wish I had other colors on the face. The blues and greens really make little baby stand out. And you have had a chance to practice with the 3 different clay techniques. We did not do slab, but we did pinch out the head and body, but we mostly focused on coil. Lots of rolling it around. Lots of adding of the details. Remember, you can make your own stuff or buy some from the store. It's not expensive. The more you practice with this, the easier it will be to use the more fancy clays, such as the earthenwares, the ceramics, or even some of the air dry stuff. Have fun practicing, and don't forget to go to KDH Art Class and subscribe to get more videos like this one. Bye!